"Who is your father, little angel?" he asked the girl. "I never met him," she replied. Micah Okoro was a man who had everything. He was the youngest billionaire in the country, and today he was out to make a huge deal of his life. But his life was about to change today. Before we move forward, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. He was driving through a small village with his team, checking land for a new luxury resort. His black SUV rolled slowly past the market, dust rising in the air. Then he saw her, a little girl, no older than 6, standing beside the road, barefoot, in a faded school uniform. Her tiny hands held out a tray of roasted yams. Her face was tired, but she stood with pride. Something about her made him look twice. Then his eyes locked on her necklace. His heart dropped. It wasn't just any necklace. It was his. A silver chain with a carved lion pendant. A custom piece. One he gave away 7 years ago, to a woman he barely remembered. He stepped out of the car, slowly. People stared. Micah didn't care. He walked up to the girl. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She looked up with wide brown eyes. "Hope." His voice shook. "Where did you get that necklace?" She looked down, touching the pendant. "My mama gave it to me," she said, almost in a whisper. He knelt down. "Where's your father?" She blinked. "I've never met him." Micah froze. Then she added, "Mama is very sick, so I sell yams after school." Micah Okoro had closed many deals in his life, but this felt like something he couldn't afford to ignore. Micah felt something in his chest he couldn't explain. He looked at the little girl again, Hope, standing there with her tray of yams and tired eyes. He took out his wallet, bought every piece of yam she had, then said gently, "Come, I'll drop you home. It's not safe to walk alone." But she shook her head. "No, thank you. Mama said not to talk to strangers. I only sell and go." Her voice was soft, but firm. Micah chuckled nervously. "I'm not a stranger. I'm just someone who wants to help." But Hope had already packed up her tray. "Thank you, sir," she said with a quick bow. And just like that, she turned and walked into the busy market crowd. Micah stood there speechless. He turned to his driver. "Follow her, quietly. Don't let her see you. I want to know where she lives." The driver nodded and stepped out of the SUV. Micah waited. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10. Then the driver returned, shaking his head. "She's gone, sir." Micah frowned. "What do you mean, gone?" "She turned into an alley near the fabric stalls, and then she vanished. I searched everywhere. She's fast." Micah leaned back in his seat, eyes on the crowd, mind racing. This little girl wasn't just any child. She had disappeared like a shadow, leaving behind nothing but questions, and a necklace that belonged to him. Micah couldn't sleep that night. The image of the little girl in her worn school uniform, the necklace, the missing father. It all haunted him. So the next morning he returned. But this time his hands weren't empty. He brought a small bag. Inside were school books, shiny black shoes, a teddy bear, a lunchbox, and 2 reading storybooks. He found Hope at the same spot, balancing her tray of yams like always. When she saw him, her eyes narrowed. "You came back." "I told you." He smiled. "I'm not a bad man." He gently placed the bag in front of her. "What is this?" she asked, suspicious. "Open it," he said softly. She peeked inside and gasped. Books, shoes, a teddy bear. Everything shiny and new. Her guard dropped. "Are these really all for me?" Micah nodded. "Only if you accept them." She looked down, then up at him again. "If If you're not bad, I'll take you to see my mama, but no lies. If you lie, I won't talk to you again." He smiled. "Deal." They walked quietly through winding paths until they reached a small broken hut at the edge of the village. The walls were cracked. The roof was patched with rusted tin and old cloth. Hope knocked gently. "Mama, someone came." The wooden door creaked open. A tired woman stood there, skin pale from fever, eyes half shut, until they locked with Micah's. She froze. He stared back. Something flickered in her eyes. Something from another lifetime. The woman at the door didn't speak. Her hand trembled as she held onto the wooden frame. Her breath quickened. Fever or fear? Micah couldn't tell. He stepped forward slowly. "You must be her mother. I'm Micah." She cut him off with a single word. "Grace." He blinked. "Excuse me?" "My name is Grace," she said, her voice dry and quiet. "Not just her mother?" Micah nodded politely, still unsure why she was staring at him like a ghost had walked in. But for Grace, it was no ghost. It was him. Flashback. 7 years ago. A small city club. Music loud. Lights low. She, was young. Happy. Dancing alone with laughter in her chest. He stood by the bar, in a sharp black suit, watching her with quiet fire in his eyes. They talked. They drank. They danced until the music stopped. In the privacy of a small hotel room, he gave her a necklace, a silver chain with a lion pendant. "For the strongest girl I've ever met," he whispered. That night she gave him her body. By morning, he was gone. No note, no number, no name. Just silence. And a necklace. Back to present. Grace stared at him now, her voice shaking. "You don't remember? Do you?" Micah's brows furrowed. He scanned her face. "I'm sorry. Have we met before?" Grace held in a bitter laugh. "You really don't remember?" But she remembered everything. And now, so would he. Micah sat on a small wooden stool inside the tiny room. The air smelled of herbs, smoke, and sickness. Hope poured water into a cup and placed it beside her mother's mat. "Mama, drink. You're sweating again." Micah watched quietly. Then he turned to Grace. "How did your daughter get that necklace?" he asked softly but firmly. Grace looked up, her lips dry. She paused for a second, then said, "I found it on the street, outside the market." Micah leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "That's not true," he said. "That piece was custom-made. Only one exists. I gave it to someone. Years ago." Grace looked away. "Maybe I was lucky. Things get lost all the time." Her hands trembled slightly. Micah could see it. She was hiding something. But then she started coughing, a deep, painful sound that came from her chest. Hope rushed to her side, rubbing her back. "Mama, please rest." Micah stood and pulled out a thick envelope from his jacket. "There's money in here, for medicine, for food. Take it." Grace pushed it away. "I don't need your charity." He frowned. "It's not charity." She looked up, her voice sharp despite her weak body. "You don't get to walk back in and fix things with cash. Keep it." Micah didn't say another word. But inside he felt it, the weight of something unfinished. This woman was hiding a truth, and he wasn't going to leave until he found it. Micah came back the next day, and the next, and the day after that. Every afternoon after her school ended, Hope would find him waiting near the yam stand with a smile, a storybook, or a snack. At first she was shy. But soon they were laughing together like old friends. She showed him her notebooks. He helped her with homework. "Why is English so hard?" she groaned one day. "Even rich people struggle with it," he joked, making her laugh. Sometimes they just sat quietly. She would eat roasted maize and he would watch the village life pass by. Something he hadn't done in years. In those moments, Micah felt something strange in his chest. Not pride, not power. Peace. Real peace. The kind no mansion or deal had ever given him. But peace doesn't come without cost. One afternoon, his assistant pulled him aside, whispering sharply, "Sir, this is the third meeting you've missed." "I'm handling something important," Micah said calmly. "Sir, the board is worried. The media noticed you in the slums again. Investors are asking questions." Micah sighed, glancing back at Hope. She was sitting on a low step, drawing with a stick in the dirt, humming a song only children knew. The assistant leaned in. "Whatever this is, it's not just business anymore, is it?" Micah didn't answer. Because deep down he already knew. This little girl was pulling him away from his empire, and he was letting her. Micah sat on the balcony of his grand mansion, the city lights glowing behind him, a glass of wine in his hand, a silk robe on his back, a perfect life by every standard. Across from him sat Tiana, elegant, stunning, the kind of woman everyone expected him to marry. They were flipping through wedding catalogs. "This one's nice," Tiana said, showing him a photo of a beach ceremony. Simple but classy. Micah nodded slowly, but his eyes weren't on the pictures. His mind wasn't even in the room. It was back in the village, with a small girl drawing in the dirt, with a woman who coughed too much and hid pain behind her silence. Tiana placed her hand on his. "Micah, you're not here. Talk to me. What's going on?" He forced a small smile. "Just work. A lot's happening this week." She looked at him for a moment, then nodded. Not convinced, but tired of asking. Later that night, Micah walked into his room and opened his drawer. Inside was a small, worn toy lion. Hope had given it to him that morning. "For when you're sad," she said. He held it in his palm now, staring at it like it was made of gold. Then he carefully placed it back and shut the drawer. He climbed into bed beside Tiana. But his heart, it was already somewhere else. Rain poured from the sky like it had a story to tell. Micah stepped out of his car, holding an umbrella. The dirt roads had turned to mud. The village looked quieter than usual. The kind of quiet that carries heavy secrets. He walked toward Grace's hut. He had brought food, medicine, and a small math book Hope had been struggling with. As he reached the front door, he heard her voice inside, soft but clear. "I don't think Micah remembers anything," Grace said, her tone laced with emotion. "But he keeps coming. He brings her gifts. He talks to her like she's already his." Micah stopped. He didn't knock. He just stood there, the rain hitting his umbrella hard, heart pounding harder. There was a pause on the other end of the phone. Then Grace's next words sliced through him. "It's strange, you know. He doesn't even know she's his daughter." Micah's breath caught. He whispered to himself, "Our daughter." The rain couldn't drown out the sound of that truth. He staggered back a step. Everything suddenly made sense. The necklace, the girl's face, the way he felt when she laughed, the weight in Grace's eyes. Micah had spent weeks falling in love with a little girl. And now he knew why. Because she was his blood, and he had walked away from her before she was even born. Micah couldn't wait any longer. His heart was racing. His shirt was soaked from the rain, but he didn't care. He pushed open the door to Grace's small hut, his chest tight, his eyes burning. Grace stood up from the floor, shocked. "Micah, why didn't you tell me?" he shouted, his voice cracking. "Why didn't you tell me she was mine?" Tears spilled down her cheeks as she tried to hold her ground. "Because I didn't want your pity," she snapped. "Because you left me once, without a word. I thought you'd vanish again. I thought... If I told you, you'd come for her and leave again." "I didn't know," Micah whispered. "I didn't know I had a daughter, but now I do. And I feel it. In my soul." He dropped to one knee, not caring that the floor was wet, or that hope was peeking from behind the curtain with wide, silent eyes. "I love her. I want to raise her. I want to be in her life every day." He looked up at Grace, voice shaking. "And I want you too. I don't want to miss one more day. Please, will you marry me?" Grace covered her mouth, overwhelmed, trembling. Just then, his phone buzzed. A voice note from Tiana lit up the screen. "Micah, please don't make any decisions until we talk. I have something important to tell you." He stared at the phone. One choice would break a heart. The other might break his own. Micah didn't say a word for a long moment. He looked at Grace, the woman who once gave him her heart. Then he turned slowly and saw her. Hope, standing quietly by the doorway, her small hands clutching the curtain, her eyes full of questions. She took a tiny step forward. "Are you really my dad?" Micah felt his heart break and come alive all at once. He knelt down and opened his arms. She ran to him without waiting for an answer. He held her close, tightly, like he'd waited his whole life to feel that moment. "Yes, my star," he whispered into her hair. "And I will never leave you again." Grace wiped silent tears from her cheeks. Micah stood slowly. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the ring he was holding since yesterday. The one meant for Tiana. He placed it gently on the wooden table. "I love you," he said softly to Grace. "But first, I must end something else." He turned, walked out the door into the evening light. The wind had stopped. The sky was quiet. But miles away, a sleek black car was racing down the road toward the village. Inside sat Tiana, her hand on her stomach, eyes red from crying. She whispered to herself, "He's mine. He just doesn't know about the baby yet." Tiana was pregnant, and Micah did not know yet. What will happen when he will know about it? He will be trapped between two choices. Share your thoughts in the comments section. What he should do, whether he should choose Hope and her mother Grace, or Tiana, who is going to be the mother of his son. Subscribe for part 2. A sleek black car pulled up on the narrow dirt road, kicking dust into the air. The engine stopped, and the door opened with a soft click. Tiana stepped out. Her heels sank slightly into the soft ground. The village was quiet. Chickens scattered. Children paused their play. Market women lifted their heads, squinting in confusion. No one dressed like this. No one looked like this. Tiana wore a long designer gown, her silky brown hair flowing over her shoulders. One hand held her purse. The other rested protectively over her belly. She took a slow breath, eyes scanning the village. "He's in there," she whispered to herself. "With them." She started walking. Each step was careful, firm. The people stared, but she didn't care. Her mind raced with questions, with pain, with hope. Then she saw her, a little girl, no more than 6 years old, standing near a yam stand, laughing with another child. She wore a soft pink frock, her hair braided in a neat high bun. Her dimples showed as she smiled. Her green eyes sparkled in the sunlight. Tiana stopped walking. Her heart skipped a beat. Those eyes, that smile, that face. It was like looking at Micah in miniature. She clutched her stomach again, tighter this time. "Oh my God," she breathed. "That's her?" For a moment, she forgot everything else. The ring, the village, even Grace. She was staring at the little girl who had Micah's eyes, and she was frozen. Tiana didn't wait for permission. She walked straight up to the small hut and pushed the wooden door open. It creaked loudly. The air inside smelled of herbs and smoke. It was dim, quiet. Grace looked up from the mat on the floor. Her hand rested on her knee, her breath slow and shallow. Her eyes narrowed when she saw the woman standing in her doorway. "Tiana," she said softly. Hope peeked out from behind the curtain, her tiny hands clutching the cloth. When she saw Tiana, she stepped back quickly and hid behind her mother. Tiana stepped inside, heels clicking against the uneven floor. She didn't shout. Her voice was calm, steady. "I came here to say something," she said. "Not to fight." Grace didn't speak. She only watched. Tiana's hand slid down to her belly again, resting there with care. "I'm pregnant," she said. "With Micah's child?" Grace blinked. Her face didn't change. Not at first. "I thought you should know," Tiana added, her voice sharp now. "Before he makes a choice you can't undo." Grace stood, slowly, using the wall for support. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I see." Hope tugged at her mother's skirt. Tiana looked around the small room. The worn blanket, the clay water jug, the broken stool. So different from her world. But Grace stood tall, even in weakness. And Tiana still felt unsure. There were no screams, just silence, thick and heavy. Grace didn't raise her voice. She didn't move forward. She didn't flinch. She looked at Tiana with steady eyes. "I raised my child alone," she said, calm and clear. "If you have to, so will you." Her words cut through the silence like a blade wrapped in silk. Tiana opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She wasn't ready for that answer. She expected anger, jealousy, fear. But Grace gave her something else. Strength. Hope peeked up at her mother again. The tension in the room was thick, but the little girl didn't understand it fully. She only saw that her mother's body had stiffened. Her hands had started shaking. Grace took a slow breath, then another. But the third didn't come easily. She coughed, once, twice, deep and heavy, from her chest. Hope rushed to her side, her small arms wrapping around Grace's waist. "Mama?" she whispered. "Mama, sit down." Grace tried to smile but couldn't hold it. She leaned on the wall and slowly sank back onto the mat. Hope knelt beside her, rubbing her back just like she'd seen the aunties do in the market. Tiana stood still, watching everything. She had walked in feeling powerful. But now she saw the truth. Grace was not just a mother. She was a warrior. And Hope, that child, carried her fire. Tiana didn't speak. She couldn't. Something inside her was shifting. The door creaked open again. Micah stepped inside. The moment he entered, everything paused. Time, breath, thought. His eyes moved slowly across the room. He saw Grace, sitting weakly on the mat, hand on her chest. He saw Tiana, standing, tall in the corner, arms crossed over her belly. His heart stopped. Hope looked up, her face lighting up instantly. "Daddy!" She ran to him. Micah dropped to one knee just in time to catch her. He wrapped his arms around her tightly, closing, his eyes for 1 second, just one, trying to feel something solid in this storm. Then he looked up, at Grace, at Tiana, at the truth between them. Tiana spoke, her voice calm but direct. You're a father. Again. Micah blinked. Once, then again. He looked at Tiana's hand resting over her stomach, then at Grace, who looked down, avoiding his eyes. He tried to stand, couldn't. He sat down instead, right there on the floor. Hope climbed into his lap, not understanding the silence, just happy he was back. Micah placed one hand around her shoulders, his other hand lifted slowly, as if reaching for something, for someone. But then froze, mid-air. He didn't speak. He couldn't. 2 women, 2 children, 2 lives pulling him in opposite directions. And for the first time, Micah had no answer. The silence didn't last long. Grace was the first to speak. You don't have to fix everything, Micah, she said softly. But if you're going to choose, do it with your heart, not your guilt. Her voice was tired, but her words were strong. Micah looked at her, pain in his eyes. Before he could respond, Tiana stepped forward. No, she said. He doesn't get to choose with his heart alone. Her voice didn't shake. He's a father of 2 children now. 2, not 1. Micah glanced down at Hope in his lap. She looked up at him, smiling, completely unaware of the war going on above her head. He looked up at Tiana again. His lips parted, then closed. He turned to Grace, opened his mouth, then stopped. Every word felt like a betrayal. To 1 woman, to 1 child, to 1 future. He stood slowly, gently placing Hope beside Grace. I never meant for this to happen, he said finally. Tiana crossed her arms. And I never meant to beg. She replied, but here I am, because I'm carrying your child. Micah stepped toward her, but she held up a hand. I don't need you to marry me out of duty, she said. I'm willing to co-parent, but I will not be discarded like I never mattered. Micah didn't speak. Tiana looked at Grace, then at the little girl on her lap. I just want my child to be loved, not hidden. The room went quiet again. This time, even Hope felt it. The hut faded. The past returned. 2 years ago, a courtroom full of flashing cameras, reporters screaming his name, lawyers whispering, shaking their heads. No one wanted to be seen beside Micah. He was being accused of fraud, a deal gone wrong. The headlines said it all. Youngest billionaire, biggest fall. But she showed up. Tiana walked in wearing a white suit, her head high, her face bare. No makeup, no fear. She took his hand in front of everyone. When they dragged his name through the news, she posted a photo of them together with the caption, I stand with him. When sponsors pulled out, she put her name and money behind his foundation. When his world shook, she stayed. Back then he had broken down in her arms, whispering into her neck, You saved me. She didn't do it for fame. She didn't love the billionaire. She loved the broken man, the one who couldn't sleep, the one who cried in silence, the one who thought everything was over. She believed in him when the world didn't. And now, she stood in a dusty hut, staring at the man she once put back together, while another woman held his child. The memory faded. Tiana's eyes blinked back to the present. She didn't say it aloud, but it echoed in her mind. You said I saved you, but you forgot who I was. Micah stepped outside the hut. The air felt heavy. He took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. The rain had stopped. The clouds were still, like they were holding their breath too. His mind was spinning. 2 women, 2 children, 2 paths. He walked a few steps forward, needing space, needing silence. That's when he saw them. At the edge of the village, a boy, about 7, was chasing a soccer ball barefoot. Laughing, his father stood nearby, clapping and calling out, Good kick. Try again." The boy turned and ran straight into his father's arms. Micah froze. His throat tightened. He remembered something. A voice from his childhood. His own father's voice. "One day, you'll be a man who carries something bigger than money." Micah glanced down at his wrist. The watch gleamed. Black leather strap. Gold rim. His father's last gift before passing. For years, it reminded him to build an empire. Now, it reminded him what he could lose. Slowly, he unbuckled it. He held it in his palm. Watched the second hand move. Like a heart beating in metal. Then he placed it in his pocket, no longer on display, no longer driving him. He looked, back at the hut, back at the women, back at the child who ran into his arms without knowing the full story. "Am I strong enough to do this right?" he whispered. He didn't have the answer, but he was ready to try. Micah stepped back into the hut. His face was different now, softer, clearer, like a storm had passed inside him. He didn't speak right away. He looked at Grace, then at Tiana, then at Hope, who sat quietly near her mother's lap. "I need you both to sit," he said gently. They did. The air was still. No raised voices, just hearts beating. Micah stood in front of them, hands by his sides, voice steady. "I will be a father to both children," he said. "I will love them, support them, protect them. That's my duty, and my choice." He paused, then turned slightly toward Grace. "But I will build my home," he continued, "where love already lives, with hope, with Grace." Grace didn't speak. Her eyes welled with tears, but she stayed still, steady like always. Tiana sat up straighter, her jaw tensed for a moment, but she didn't scream. She didn't curse. She nodded. Then she stood, slowly brushing her gown down with her hand. Her voice was low, but firm. "Then give my child your name," she said. "Not your silence." Micah blinked. Tiana looked him in the eye, calm and proud. "I won't stop you from choosing her, but don't erase me from the story." She turned toward the door. Micah's hand twitched, as if to stop her, but he didn't, because Tiana wasn't running away. She was walking out, with dignity. Tiana walked slowly down the dirt path, the same one she had arrived on with fire in her chest. But now, her hands rested gently over her belly. Her eyes didn't burn, they shimmered. The sleek black car waited at the edge of the road. The driver stepped out, ready to open the door. Tiana paused. She turned around. Grace had stepped out of the hut. She stood barefoot on the step, arms crossed over her waist, wind brushing through her loose hair. Their eyes met. No one spoke for a moment. Then Grace said, her voice soft but sure, "You'll never be alone. We are not rivals. We are mothers." Tiana didn't smile, but her eyes softened. She gave a slow nod. And in that second, something passed between them. Not friendship, not forgiveness, but respect. The kind only two women who've walked through fire can give each other. Tiana turned back to the car. She slid inside, closed the door, and the engine started. As the car disappeared into the horizon, Micah stepped out beside Grace. Hope ran, out and wrapped herself around his leg. He picked her up with one arm and pulled Grace close with the other. He didn't look back. He looked ahead. And with a voice full of truth, he whispered, "This time, I'm staying." Do you think Tiana was treated fairly? Should she accept Micah's decision, or start a new life on her own terms? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what you think.